Hope you guys are doing well. So, um, continuing on our journey, there are some important CSS styles which we'll be using a lot, right? So, for example, so I'll just go a little bit, go through, and then we will see. So, first is inline size, right? Now, inline size and block size. Now, when we are styling elements like live span, or live span, paragraph, anything. Now, inline and block size is more often cinematically aligned, and it is uh, more preferred, right? Now, why we when we use inline is because it's whenever we have something which has a text, right? For example, if it's a span tag with a text, if it's a page tag. So, what does inline do is suppose English is written from left to right. So, if I do inline size, then the way that language is written, the spacing or something else will be applied in that direction. Again, so this is inline size, and this is basically so basically for boxes with text, we generally prefer using inline and block size, right? It makes sense using it there. The next thing that we have is clamp, right? Now clamp is a short abbreviation of clamp, min, preferred, and max. So instead of giving it a width, now when we give it a width, we are restricting, right? For example, we are not having a multiple screen optimized thing, right? So instead, what should we do? It should give a clamp. So when we do a clamp, so there, this is basically making it more, what do you say, accessible across different sizes of browse of different screens, right? For example, if we are using a mobile screen or an iPad, so this is what is going to clamp. So clamp is basically it has min and max, right? When you do a width, it's fixed, like there is no responsiveness. Now then again, the next property that we have is basically inset, right? Now inset is a shorthand for top, right, bottom, left, right? Now it is very commonly used when you're giving a position absolute, and then for example, if I need to have a layer, right? So this is very helpful during that process. Now what does it do is basically it is going to align the top. So this is top, this is like giving position, right? So you give it a top, you give it a right, bottom, and left. Now whenever we are having a position absolute, right, what is going to happen is the width of that element, it's going to be taken out of the DOM, right? It's basically out of DOM. So the in normal limits, the width of the content inside the tag is going to indicate the size of the tag, right? But then since this is out of the DOM, what is going to happen is instead of the content, instead of the the text inside declaring the content, what is going to happen is we are going to have a DOM element basically, which is going to, sorry, basically we are going to have an element whose whose size is no longer the size of the content, right? It will be like a block element, that is, it will take all the available space. So when you do a position relative, right, so remember, it's going to when it means absolute, it's going to be out of the content, first of all, out of the down flow, and the size of the content is not equal to the width of the tag, right? It's going to behave like a block element. So then you can use this basically to change the location with respect to the parent element, right? So you can put it at the 0 comma 0. So if it's an empty, so if the parent is an empty tag, right, there is no space, like there is no content inside. So if there is no content and there is no width, so what you do is you have this to move to 0, right? When everything is 0, it is going to exactly overlap on that no content thing, and then you can stretch it out. Now align cells, now this is very important, right? What does it do is, so if I've given a flex box, right, and then if I said flex is along row, so what this align cell does is it will allow us to now change the flex, override the vertical alignment for a single item. So basically we're going to override, right? So remember, this is the main axis, this is the cross axis, right? So if I'm placing across rows, then I can override it and I can center it along vertically, right? So this is something that align self offers. Grid. Now remember, basically if it's a grid, then you can arrange elements in row and column both ways. So 1 FR is basically a fraction of a width. So this is basically indicate how many columns we are going to have. So when I say 3 1 fraction, basically I'm going to have 3 columns and they are exactly spaced because they're going to take the same fraction of space available. Now when I do a place center, I'm going to center it along both the X and Y. So basically along both rows and columns. Now again, grid template row is going to define the number of columns. Grid template column defines the number of columns. So when you have 3 columns, automatically you will get a 1 row, right? So again, row column gap or row column grid row gap or column grid column gap is basically indicating the spacing between the grid items, right, in the row and column direction. Now this is something important, SVG. Now SVG stands for scalable vector graphics, right, for basically defining 2D graphics using XML syntax. Now using SVG we can create shape, icon, charts and animations, right? Now how does an SVG can, so first what we do to do is we need to define a canvas, SVG canvas. So the moment we have that SVG canvas, we are going to have this coordinate system being defined, but this is my 0 comma 0 location. So then I'm going to give it so when I'm giving a width, I'm moving along X and height is along Y. So for example is, now what, so when I say width 200 is uh, so along the width axis I am having 200, and then along the height axis I have a 200. So what I'm going to get is, so from here 200 and then again from 200. So this is going to be a perfect square, right? Okay, now this is the SVG tag that we write, right? So Excel, this is basically indicating to W3 standard. So that is okay. X11s basically declares it as if we have an SVG, right? Now width and height is going to set the size of the canvas. Now view box, this is an optional. It defines internal coordinate system. So that is okay. Now adding a shape, right? For example, what if we want inside the, we need to add a rectangle. So this is along X 10 and along Y 10. With having a height of 50 meter, width 100 and fill is basically the internal color. So this is okay. So what is going to happen is I'm going to draw a rectangle. Now X comma Y is the top left corner. So this is X comma Y is for, so from where, from X10 and Y10. So if this is my canvas, right, so here is, say suppose this is some 10 location, right? So here is I'm going to have so if we say this is the point where my X comma Y is 10. So this is where the rectangle is going to be drawn, right, in the canvas. Now for example, see, so when we do CX CY again, so fill is basically the color, R is the radius. So this is going to indicate where the center so of the circle, right? For example, if this is X and Y, so suppose this is X, right? So this is along X. So 50 is suppose over here. So here is going to be the center, and then from here I'm going to have a radius of 40. So this is going to be how my circle is going to be drawn, right? A 40 radius circle. Then again polygon points. So basically this is going to be for example a triangle and then points in XY coordinates, right? Now styling and SVG, you can add normal CSS because this is a SVG. This is a now this kind of becomes a HTML element, right? So you can add your custom styling to it. Now why should one prefer SVG? Okay, there is something called as path tag as well. Now it creates an invisible box, ensures consistent sizes across all the icons and all icon set. Now prevents icon from appearing misaligned. So for example, if I have a now stroke, this is like heavy, light, or however. I don't know if there is an option in this. If I go here, yeah. So when I do, so basically, okay, yeah, I have an option. Okay, so when I click on this and then no, it's not giving. Yeah, so when I do this, right, this is basically indicating the stroke. So it should be for basically thickness is what is going to be indicated. Now when when I do a path, so there are uh, certain essential things that I have in the path, right? This is DM0. So what is this indicate is the M00 is basically, so this is M00. This is one first thing is indicating move the position to 0 comma 0 comma on the canvas, which is the top left corner. H24 is draw lines 24 units horizontal. So right now I'm on x comma 0, and then from here draw 24 horizontal lines. So suppose this is 24. V24 indicates draw a vertical line. So I am over here a vertical line. Okay, and H0 is basically draw horizontal line, but at x equal to 0. Okay, so then H0, so we have drawn this, right? We are 24 here. Okay, we are 24 here, 24 here. So then now I'm saying H0 is going to draw a line along here. So this is my H0 line. And back to now, close the path. Z is basically connect the base to starting point and 0 0. So basically it's a rectangle that is going to become, right? Now there are certain free tools also available to make SVG. One of them is Figma. You have SVG path editor. You have box SVG, method SVG. These are all very good methods, right? Now, even so, when you go to Material UI, right, this is a very famous library or very famous open source library where you have icons, right? So so there, even when you go, so there are two things that you can do, right? Either you can get the SVG of an icon, or either you can get a PNG, right? So now we will compare why should we use an SVG or should we use a PNG. Now SVG is going to be a scalable vector graphics. So this is vector. So by vector, this position X and Y is like giving its vector, right? So when you say vector quantity, you give it a position and a direction, right? So that X and Y is like defining the canvas and giving it an X and Y vector. So then since we say that this is an SVG. Now PNG is basically this is pixel related, right? So for example, pixels are basically small rectangular boxes, right? Now SVG will is highly scalable, right? Because here what we are doing is we are drawing everything from scratch. So even if you try to expand the canvas, this wouldn't cause any damage. If you try to increase the size, it is going to blur the image. Now this SVG is highly editable, right? By mentioning what you want in the SVG tag, where the location should be, where the X should be, where the Y should be, you can edit or you can change. But then this PNG, once we download it, we cannot update it, right? Then again, this is transparency is in both. Again, size efficiency is very good, right? We can make it according to our own size because we are drawing it from scratch. Here, larger for details. So if you want a detail, we do a larger approach. Now, since SVG is like an HTML tag, right? We can add custom styling to it. For example, you can make it to animate. We can do whatever we want to do. Because remember, this is like this SVG is going to go inside the HTML, right? This SVG is basically an HTML tag. So this is highly editable, you can do animations with it. You can change the color. You can do lot of, right? We can add CSS to it. We can add JS to it because it's a HTML, right? We can directly target. Now this is not at all animatable because we cannot edit it, right? Now this is again all supported by all browsers, and even this is all supported. So whenever we are drawing an icon, right, it is always preferred to have an SVG. Always have an SVG version because then you can add custom styles to it, and we can change the shape of the icon as the way we want, right? So always remember, this is basically like drawing from sketch, right? So whenever we say that this is an SVG, basically first we are going to define the canvas, then we are going to give the X. We are basically going to the HTML attributes in the SVG tag is going to form my SVG. So since it's an HTML tag, it can be added, right? We can add styles to it, right? Because this is an SVG. So uh, remember, whenever we are doing with anything with the SVG, any icon related thing, it's always preferred to have an SVG. Never preferred to have a background image because that kind of first of all we lose the the property of editing, right, which is the most famous thing, or which is something that we would be doing very often, right, whenever we are trying to have something. So yeah, so remember, all icons should be SVG, or scalable vector graphics. The scalable vector graphics, basically the images, it appears that you are downloading it, but then that image is constrained in that tag, so you can add extra attributes and style it. So I guess that is all for the session. I hope you guys liked it, like the brief intro of how to make an SVG from scratch. If you want icons, please download the SVG format in all standard, for example, material UI as well. You will get an SVG. Never use a PNG, because when you scale the PNG, it is going to blur out the image. While that effect does not happen um, on the SVG, because it's an HTML tag, right? So you can do various styling to it. So I guess, yeah, that is all for the session. I hope you guys liked it. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in another video. Take care. Bye bye.